Fellas, how we doing?
MT, what's going on?
The usual, mate. I'm pumped for this potty. We've got so many questions, and
Prep season.
yeah, I know exactly. There's
Yeah.
a lot of prep related questions. What I want to do is I want to rapid fire the first 10. Just
Well,
go through them real quick. Um, what I think I'll do is I'll just give a quick response, see if you boys want to add anything, move to the next, then move to
all
the
right,
next,
cool.
move to the next, because we
Sounds
get a
good.
lot of people saying, "Oh, I asked a question, you guys haven't answered it yet." So I think I got 10 out of there, and I was like, I think we can rapid fire these ones pretty quick. All right,
All
so
right, let's go.
let's get started.
Should be
Um,
fun.
does social media presence and fan base on social media influence judging? It seems that a lot of known competitors win a lot. So if anyone hasn't listened to the podcast I had with Stu, the NBA founder, uh, we answered this question, and he's outright said no. And he's the head judge, also Australia wide. And I can tell you too that yeah, the answer is definitely no. There may be one federation that might look at your social media, um, which is WBFF, which I think a lot of people know about. But other than that, it does not make a difference.
Yeah. I
Boys,
want to say, in the Natty Feds, absolutely not. No one gives a shit.
yeah,
No.
cool. Uh, Predictions on the most popular bikini color this season. So, what's really funny is I've probably had five conversations this week with people in season A
Me
asking what
too.
my opinion is on bikini color. Uh, like, look, the most popular colors are going to be red, blue, purple, green, right? So that's going to be the most popular colors. I think have a look at the venue that you're going to be competing at. Maybe go to a show where that venue is, see what looks good on stage, and then make a decision based off that. And that's what I've told most people is like, go to a show and just see what you think and go from there. Anything to
Yep.
add, boys?
No, move on. Good one.
Past injury in lower back, limiting mobility, reposing for bikini, tips on improving mobility. So, as we know, for bikini posing or for female posing, we have to twist and turn a lot. Normally, the hips are facing side on and the shoulders are facing front on. So, the mobility doesn't come so much from the lower back, it actually comes from the thoracic, so your mid back. So if you have an issue with your lower back mobility, it shouldn't affect too much in your twisting to the front. That's more about your thoracic mobility, even though you want to have some mobility in your lower back. It's more about the extension in your lumbar, right? So, think about glute pop, booty pop, having that extension. That's what you want to try to make sure that you have a bit of so in your lower back. So think about rotation is going to come from thoracic, extension is going to come from lower. I know with all my peeps in prep, I actually have a section in their training program that tells them a section for posing, which has their stretches, their activation, and then how long they should be posing and practicing posing. So, uh, yeah, there's definitely things that you need to do to improve your mobility. But if you have an issue with your lower back mobility, it's not so much of a concern. It's probably more your thoracic mobility that's going to affect you the most. Do you have anything on that, Scotty? Because I know we kind of spoke about it with me and my mobility for my twisting in my men's physique poses.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's as you pretty much just summarized it, but it's having that extension rotation through that thoracic region of your spine. So there are some good exercises that you can do, but just think extension rotation through that T spine. So book openings, and there's so many different variations of them that you can do. There's also a 180-degree palm glide. I think we've got some demos of that on our social media if someone wants to have a look at that. But those sort of movements, they make a big difference because sometimes if you have a lack of mobility, that can essentially hinder the presentation that you're able to demonstrate with your posing. So most people, if they're like, oh my God, I'm 4 weeks out, fuck, I've got no mobility, you're leaving it a bit late. So I'm a big advocate, as you boys know, we all have accessories that we need to do in our improvement season to attenuate that and to make sure that we are able to still, if you can pose when you're in the off season, then as you get leaner and you get less fat mass, essentially your mobility will probably only get better. But it's something like everything, you just got to allocate time to. But if you just type in YouTube, improve extension rotation through my T-spine or thoracic region of my vertebrae. How do I do that? There's about 50 different variations of different types of book openings that will help you with that.
Yep, definitely. Known posing coaches in Central Coast, New South Wales. So I don't know any in the Central Coast, but I know Candace, someone that's in my team. She's a posing coach in New South Wales, and she's actually just teamed up today. She released it today that she's teamed up with a classic physique pro. His name's Philip. He's also from New South Wales. They're both online coaches and do face-to-face. They're not in the Central Coast. They're more in Sydney itself, but it's someone that you can definitely reach out to. So whoever asked this question, I'm not too sure if it was a male or a female. Candace, Stage Candy, spelt with an I at the end. Have a look at her on Instagram, and she'll be able to help you out there. Do you guys know the New South Wales coaches?
Yeah, Mel Fury.
Mel Fury, yeah.
Yeah, he's also an A&B judge. He's in New South Wales. And I'm not sure if is this a female specific?
I'm not too sure. Not too sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's Jay Petrie as well.
Okay, cool. There you go.
New South Wales. But yeah, reach out if anyone's got any New South Wales questions. Reach out.
Yep. Okay. So this person asked 2 questions, but I'm going to join it into one. What do you do about clients who cheat multiple times in their prep? Have you ever had a client cheat the week leading into their show, and how did it affect their physique? So what do you do about clients who cheat multiple times in their prep? If it can be corrected, alleviated, a change in habit, a change in plan, and it's not going to affect the end result, and it can all be mopped up and cleaned up and not affect their end result, that's perfectly fine. If it has, and it will continue to affect their end result, that's when you need to have the hard conversation with them that maybe you're not going to make it and bring your absolute best. Have I had anyone cheat in the weeks leading up to prep? No, I haven't. What do you boys think about that? So cheating during their prep and then cheating in the week out and it affecting their physique. MG, you want to go?
Yeah, well, obviously it's not ideal. I reckon we've probably all had people who have cheated and maybe we just don't know about it, right? Sometimes it's all about the information that gets disclosed too. So like MT said, it's not something that we ever want to have to deal with, but we will absolutely deal with it if it needs to be. And then is it going to affect the end result? And if it's going to affect the end result, for me, it's like I need to have a conversation about where is your state of mind at the moment? Because, ultimately we set this massive goal. We're so close now, and you're trying to sabotage yourself with, things like food that is always going to be there at the end. So for me, it'll be a conversation about whether or not this person actually wants to complete and finish this prep, or whether, they're starting to see some tendencies and terrible relationships to food. And I think that pushing it any further may not be the best outcome for them. So maybe there needs to be a conversation had about whether the prep even continues to go ahead. Because, it's definitely something that happens. And it's typically a sign that something else is off. So it's really about addressing what else is causing this, because typically there's an underlying factor. So,
yeah. What about you, Scotty?
I can't even remember the last time I had someone who cheated throughout their prep. It's pretty rare, to be honest. I'm pretty transparent early on with what my expectations are, with what theirs are as well. Because at the end of the day, they're making such a big sacrifice to do that. But it would have been a few years since I've had someone who's deviated. But I have had someone who has gone through completely unscaled, and then 2 days out during their carb up, completely destroy themselves in one evening.
Really?
So typically, as you guys know, we'll have stage food. I always give my athletes a list of foods and whatnot they're going to need on the day. And this person, for whatever reason, just had a fucking brain fade and started eating some lollies and then ice cream. And then all of a sudden, we went from having a physique on the Thursday, which was like incredible, to letting me know first thing Friday morning when they sent through their check-in pictures. And I was like, what the fuck happened overnight? And literally straight on the phone. And then they were transparent that they had just completely just fucked up everything that we've done over the week. So it was a pretty full-on day. They spent a lot of time physically training that day because we had to just try and move some of that carbohydrate out and also move some of the edema that came with that and the inflammation. They still got on stage and looked okay, but it definitely cost them. They definitely would have taken out their divisions. I think they placed like third, maybe. And then 2 weeks following, they were obviously that they didn't make that same mistake again, and we came up with the solution that basically the food that they were going to need on the day, they were going to bring all of the lollies and the bits and pieces that we needed, and I'd just bring it to the show, and then I'd take it off them until they needed it again.
Yeah.
And that was fine. But yeah, not ideal. It was very fucking stressful. And again,
yeah, for sure.
It's also it's very frustrating from a coaching perspective, because it's like I know what I saw on the Thursday, and I'm like, you know, this person's going to do damage on Saturday, and then in the space of 12 hours, it's so quickly how much a physique can change. But your approach has to be straight away to damage control, like me making them feel like a piece of shit, and hating on them and making them feel even worse. At the end of the day, if that was me and I had done that, I would know, like, especially you've come that far and it's like falling over at the finish line. I didn't need to make them feel any worse than they already did. So it was more like, okay, how can we fix it? And they suffered pretty much all Friday, and they knew that it was going to affect their result, because they're like, is it going to cost me? And I'm like, full transparency, yeah, it probably is. You're still going to look good, but you're not going to look how you looked last night, and it's a learning curve. So
yeah, a couple of things there. You know what's funny is whenever a client slips up, how they communicate it and how they react to it really tells you how serious they're taking it. So for instance, if someone slips up and they're like, oh, well, I had a moment, let's move on.
One of those ones.
And I'm like, okay. But then you have ones that are like super fucking down on themselves, like beating themselves up and like really, really hard. I actually like that reaction. I was like, well, it means a lot to you then, right? And you're taking this thing seriously. The ones who are like, oh, stuffed up, but it's a new day today. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's got to take it a little more seriously than that. But with that person there, I'm just wondering, how were they post-comp?
They were okay. I made the call to put them into a recovery phase straight away. And even then, they were just very naive. So I like to, as you guys know, start to have the conversation before 4 weeks out from the first show, start talking about what we can expect when the preparation ends, so that it's not like, now comp's finished, what do I do? Yeah. So they've got a little bit of foresight. They can start planning, because a lot of people just think, I'm going to go out for dinner, I'm going to see, MT on Sunday night, and then I'm going to have breakfast with MG, and then we're going to go for a soup on Tuesday night, and then you've got all of these things. But it's about just pacing yourself. And I always say to people, when your prep ends, just think of it that you've got 8 more weeks of contest prep, and you need to just give me that level of adherence so that I can just put you back together, and then you can go off and be on your way. And you'll be in a position where you can just make, educational and sensible decisions without, the perturbations of a contest prep leading you astray to just eating like an asshole. So this person was not great in that first phase, but having said that, they're following contest preps better and better. And every time you prep, you learn something. And I also learned, for example, when this person competed the next time around, they don't bring any of the show day foods that they need other than their rice cakes and their bits and pieces. I look after that. And then again, I take it with me for the remainder of the season, because they just know they're not in a position, if it's there, they may be tempted to it. So we just remove the temptation.
Yeah. That's a big thing, like changing your environment, your immediate environment, not having temptations there, because you're not in a position to make rational decisions. Yeah.
For sure. And some people can handle that. Yeah. And other people can't. Like, I've had people say, oh, do you just, when you're in prep, someone actually the other day asked, are you going to start to get all this shit out of your house? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Not at all, because that doesn't have any effect on me. Like, again, your why needs to be bigger than your short-term desire to go and have this, go and have that. But everyone's different. So
you know what, for me, I think I told you guys this, is I removed peanut butter and Biscoff spread from my house, right? Because I was like, this is going to be the one thing that's probably going to tempt me the most, and I just don't want it. So I removed it in prep. I put it in a plastic bag, and I put it in my garage in like the bottom of the cabinet. You know, I found it the other day.
You forgot about it?
Oh my God, there it is.
Still be fun.
I didn't realize.
Still be fun.
The other day I found it, put it back in the pantry. Haven't even had it yet.
Yeah, there you go. Just shows you really didn't miss it that much.
No, Was that a first timer too?
Yes.
Yeah, that's first timer. Yeah.
And again, there was so much education around that,
Yeah.
but typically the last few days are the easiest, and you would think that
Yeah.
it's okay, but I was probably a bit naive, and well, not really actually. I would just think you're literally less than 48 hours out. Surely you're not going to open that and then go scavenging through your house, especially when you had, this person wasn't drastically dieted down either. They were
Yeah.
still eating a good amount of food, but they just got to a point, and sometimes they're literally once you start, you don't realize, and then it's like, fucking hell, I'm out of control here.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not in a position
And
to
we're
do.
not talking like just, a little bit of extra food. Like we're talking 8, 9, 10,000 calories, in an evening.
Whew, it's impressive.
Yeah, and then you can imagine the inflammation that then comes with that as well. Super, super
Yeah.
sick. Their guts were just completely cooked.
Yeah.
And the distension through the midsection was just like, they're late in the second trimester, about to enter the home stretch to push one out,
Man, I'm telling you, they just went into labor at that point. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of lessons learned.
A lot of lessons learned. And again, use that as a reference point
100%.
to people as well. So just being mindful of that.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Basic ideas for programming for wellness. Right. So wellness, very heavy lower body dominant in comparison to upper body. So, you'd probably want to be training that lower body at least at a frequency of 3 times a week. Hitting the quads, hitting the hammies, hitting the glutes from all the angles, probably even using unilateral movements for quads and hams that have glute bias too, to get just a little bit more. I think at least a third or more of your volume, probably more, is 2/3 of your volume is going to be towards your lower body. You've got to assess the physique, see what they need more of, see what they need less of. If they're lacking in the quads, give them more quads. If they're lacking in the hams, so on and so forth. But yeah, upper body is going to be at a maintenance level. You probably still want to have some width through the upper, just to give you a little bit of a taper. But when they pose in wellness, it's even if it's in a natural fed or even in IFBB, it's kind of hairs down covering the back. So you're not even going to see the back. You will see the capping of the shoulders though. So you want to have some development there. And obviously you want to have super tight midsection and then just heaps of mass in that lower half.
for sure.
Anything on that, MG?
Your training split's basically like legs, delts, legs, back, legs.
Yeah, it's
like that's like, and even on that back day, it's like rear delts, upper trap, tricep. Like there's just so many things that, and let's just make this comparison to IFBB, because then the natty feds haven't quite established what our wellness is. Like we haven't got the perfect wellness athlete at this point in time.
Yeah.
So like if you look at IFBB, where it's like it's supposed to be with a dominant lower half, but you look at the top IFBB pros in wellness and like their uppers are pretty complete, man, and put together. But like there's definitely a size difference, but they're not lacking in the upper. And that's what I think people miss. It's like, oh, I've just got a really great lower half. You still got to have an upper. Like, and if you look at their delts and their upper backs, they are super, super impressive.
Yeah.
But legs are just like lean, muscular tree trunks. And it's not even a conditioning thing anymore. I think like the top IFBB wellness divisions, man, are still peeled on the legs as well. Like the glute to hamstring tying is phenomenal. Like, so, but that what Trimboli said in terms of the split would be like pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Like you won't be able to get that much volume in unless you have 3 days, I reckon. It'd just be too tough.
Yeah. And you would have to be really careful with recovery, because you can't really do full leg days because you'll have some crossover with recovery. You'd also have to have like a quad and glute focus. Maybe a ham and glute, then maybe quad and ham. Then like you'd have to split it in a way so that you don't have much crossover and affect your recovery.
And then I reckon you'd almost have like just a unilateral day for lower. Like
yeah, for sure. Anything else on that, Scotty, for wellness?
No, not really. I think you guys are pretty much, you've ticked it off. Yeah.
Okay. I want to work with one of you. I've been wanting to work with one of you for a while, but I can't choose which one. What do I do? Hire all 3 of us.
What about if we came up with a TMG coaching, like where you get all three of us for
Yeah, all three. Yeah, we can just do all.
We just alternate weeks.
Yeah, true. You look after upper, I'll look after lower, and then Scotty does conditioning. What do you reckon?
Done,
Easy.
man. And the answer to the question is simply this: book a consult with all of us, and
Yeah,
then you'll know as soon as you finish.
Yeah,
And just so you know, once you've booked a consult with all of us and you pick one, we'll all know because we were all consulted with you. But no, like, believe me, like we just want to see athletes out there that compete, work with coaches that we know are putting out good methodology. So if you ended up with any of the three of us, and you were considering another one of us, none of us would be disappointed because we know that you're going to end up in great hands regardless. And we're still going to be a part of your journey regardless because like all of my team always see MT because he's at my gym and a lot of my team are friends with people in MT's team. So we sort of cross collaborate on stuff. So like we're all going to still be part of your journey no matter what.
yeah, yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we refer people that might hit us up for a specific type of category. For example, if I have someone who's a bikini competitor, typically I'm always, well, not typically, I'll be like, do you know what, you're probably going to be better suited to either Michael Trimboli or Michael Galante. I can vouch for both of those guys. Just because they typically work more with that type of athlete. Whereas if you're a fitness female or, sports or figure or whatever, so I think you just, like anything, just have it. You can book your consult, but you're gonna do all right with whichever way you go.
Yeah, and we'll probably be open and honest. And if we think you're suited to someone else, then we'll tell you too. Like, oh, you know what? I reckon MG's gonna be better for you, or Scotty's gonna be better, or whatever it may be. So we're not fussed in that perspective.
Yeah.
My coach checks in with me once every 3 weeks. Should I stress about this?
Are you paying them every week?
Yeah, it should be every week.
Yeah.
It's every 3 weeks. Yeah, we spoke about this in the last potty, I think, about what to expect from a coach. Was it? Yeah, I think it was last.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It should be weekly, like maybe fortnightly if it's like off season and you're ticking along nicely, but it should be weekly. 3 weeks. I've never heard that. Yeah, never heard that.
Yeah. There's some things out there that are happening that I suppose the three of us, like, we want to kind of set a minimum standard for what should be expected. Like, I spoke to someone just yesterday who reached out to a coach who's considered one of the top IFBB coaches in Melbourne, and the feedback was that all of the programs just get emailed. So email it and you got to like write it, and then the check-ins are bi-weekly.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So, and the fees still high. So
yeah.
I think 3 weekly check-ins, I'd be concerned. A lot can change in three. Scott's client, something changed in one night. You know what I mean? Admittedly, that was like close to comp, but like 3 weeks is a long time.
Yeah.
And as you get closer as well, I mean, even though, like, let's be honest, there's some weeks where there may not be a ton of variables that need attention and you may only have to spend 15, 20 minutes on a check-in. But then there's other times, if you're riding a new mesocycle, could take longer. If you're in a peak week, typically most of my athletes' peak weeks, I'm spending minimum 4 to 6 hours minimum throughout the week, like making sure everything's perfect. And then you're in communication with that athlete literally every single day. Even from 7 weeks out now, as of this Saturday, all of my guys, I'm pretty much checking in every second day, like how's things going. I'm in their spreadsheet every day to make sure that everything's on point because we're invested in this just as much as they are.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask a question, is not one here, but just something I thought up now is, have you ever told a client that they should put coaching on hold because maybe for life reasons, health reasons, money well spent somewhere else for now? Have you ever done that?
Yeah. Multiple times, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like at the end of the day, we've spoken about this, right? And MT, you say this a lot. It's like we only want to coach you if you want to be coached. And like jumping in and looking at data and the data not being right or missing week in, week out. Like here and there, I get it, schedules and stuff, but like constantly no data. And then like that's equally not fun for you as the athlete having to be chased. And it's also not fun as the coach having to jump in and ask for something when we're taking a fee for service. If we can't deliver it, we feel like shit too.
100%.
So for those reasons, for sure.
Yeah, I literally had this the other day where this client's in an off season. They're not going to compete anytime soon, and they're going through some mental health issues. And they said, oh, in one of their check-ins, they were mentioning about it, and they said they don't have the money right now to get the support they need, right? And they're trying to save the money. And I said to them,
Yeah,
you know what? Don't spend the money on me. We're not doing anything immediate right now. We're not trying to hit the stage right now. That time's going to come in the future. Money well spent working on your mental health and getting that support, even though I've supported them so much and done everything I could do, but they just needed that next level. And for them to say that, I was like, I have to tell them this. I have to say, you know what? Money well spent somewhere else. When that is sorted and you're in a good position, come back to me. And they were really grateful that I did that.
That's good coaching.
It is, man. It's obviously
being a good human as well.
It's super noble. But the only thing is, you also don't know, like, you would have done so much. How much of a part are you of them being where they are now and not worse?
100%.
Because they've got you, you know what I mean? So it's like, for that fee per week for them, it's like, well, thank fuck I've got Trimboli.
Yeah.
It's like, he's my one rock. I just need maybe another avenue of someone who's more specifically trained in that area. But like, imagine if you weren't there.
Yeah. And, we become friends with our clients. So I said to them, doesn't mean you can never reach out to me if you ever need help. Like, of course, like, I'm here to support you, but why pay me the money to update your training program and do your check-ins and stuff where it's money well spent somewhere else? Just maintain what you're doing right now, the amount of times you train, how much food you're eating, just try to maintain what you got and just work on that aspect of your life and spend the money there. And I had someone else who was going through some other personal family issues. And I said, that's way more important at the moment too. Like,
that's because you coach for the right reasons, man. You coach because you love the sport. You always have, and like, you never got into this because it was like, I'm going to be a multi-billionaire coach. You got into it because you loved it, right? You left a great career with good money to take a big risk because you loved it. So like, nothing about that decision surprises me, and it just shows that, like, that's the sort of attitude a coach should have. It's like, I'm not just in it for a numbers game. Like, we all cap rosters for a reason, right? Because we know we can't give 1 million clients our 100% best. So we put numbers we know where we're absolutely giving our max, and any more would maybe give the clients a bit of a disservice.
Yeah.
So
if coaches are listening to this and they think that they have clients that are in that position, so it's best to bring that up with them, to be honest, because you're not going to lose them as a client per se. If you look after them and do the right thing, they'll always come back. They'll always remember you. They're not going to go, and when they're ready to get back on board, they're not going to go with someone else. Highly unlikely. So, treat them the way you'd like to be treated and do what's best for them. And that means leaving you for the time being, putting things on hold and working on other things. They'll come back. And then vice versa, if someone's listening to this that has a coach and is thinking about that maybe money well spent somewhere else, or they're not utilizing their coach to the best of their abilities, have that conversation. That coach should be professional about it for sure.
Yeah, I think the fear with a lot of people is like, as a coach, if I'm just talking for the coaches, like, oh, but where will my next one come from? I used to think that way.
Oh.
Yeah, I definitely used to think that way. Like, but if I lose this person, then, where will I get my next comp line? And we used to talk about it all the time. But ultimately, like, there are plenty of competitors, and you want someone that's in the right mind state who's going to give you 100%. And so equally, you can give them back 100% so that it's a fruitful relationship.
Yeah, for sure. The other question was, what is the essential data that you should collect from clients? Now, we spoke about this last check-in too, but it's all the normal stuff, right? It's the body weight, it's the steps, it's the sleep, it's other things that you might want to track, like you might want to track the days they train. You might want to track maybe circumference measurements, things like that. You might want to track other metrics of stress and things like that. But the essentials are going to be that raw data, that the sleep, the steps, the weight, and maybe even some kind of signals to do with hunger and those kind of things. They're more rankings, but it's definitely data worth collecting. And obviously all their training data, of course. But yeah, we spoke about a lot in the last check-in. Anything there, boys, that you think is useful?
No, I think you absolutely nailed it. And this is the other thing. If we just go back to that coach every 3 weeks, right? If they're emailing out programs, I'm guessing you're not logging weight anywhere, like daily or like, because if you're only getting a check-in once every 3 weeks, so that's just something that rings an alarm bell as well. It's like, what are you using to track and measure? If you're
Yeah.
only having a 3 weekly check-in and you're getting a paper program, what's your
Yeah,
data
if a
management
coach
system? It's
is
probably the same person who's asking the question.
Yeah, if a coach is emailing you out a PDF, I don't know how they're tracking your lifts. Got no idea how they're, how
It's
they're
that
tracking.
they just it's not possible unless you fill them all in and scan them, the pages of your little book that you keep or whatever. I don't know how you're and like 1 to 2 weeks of thinking you're training hard but lifting the same weights can turn into 3 to 6 months so quick,
Yeah, of
and you
course.
don't even realize how much time you've wasted not progressing.
Yeah. Uh, do you think you have good genetics for this sport? Scotty, do you have good genetics for this sport?
Probably not. I'm 6'2" and I got long femurs. I got long arms. I had to work hard. When I played football, I didn't look like I look now. Same with when I played basketball.
Yeah.
I don't think I have horrendous genetics, but I don't think I've been gifted. Like, let's say Zach. Everyone knows Big Zach. He has
Yeah.
good genetics.
hmm
Was his calves. I could train my calves 100 years straight if I can live that long, and they probably won't be as big as was his calves were when he was like 9. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, some people just genetically are gifted in that sense. So, no, I don't think so.
If you had to pick one thing that maybe you have a little bit of a level up, what do you think it is? Like a body part or something? Metabolism, maybe, like something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe through my chest, I'm able to, and maybe conditioning wise, I'm able to. Then I diet pretty hard. I don't store a ton of body composition through my midsection. I don't know. I
Okay.
can get shredded reasonably okay.
Yeah. What about you, MG? What do you think? Are you genetically gifted?
Well, equal to Scott. Actually, I was with a mate of mine who's classic physique in the IFBB. That we were training the other day, and we're pushing hard. And I showed him my quads. He's like, "Man, you're in the wrong sport. You're too tall." It's like 6'3". I'm like, I thought I had a massive pump, but next to him, he's like 5'7" or something, man. Um, I probably got 10 kilos or 12 kilos on him, but he looks like he's 50 kilos heavier than me. So I
Yeah.
would say like not genetically best. I also struggle to put size on a lot of areas. But I do get lean pretty easy. But I'd say my gift is I have lovely knuckles, man. Look at
Oh, yeah.
that. Lovely knuckles. There you go. There's my genetic gift. What about you, Mr. Trimboli?
Yeah, I don't think I'm genetically gifted, but if there was one part of me that is genetically gifted, it's probably my forearms, which mean absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, you do have great forearms. Yeah.
Because I do not train them and they're just massive. They're like bigger than my calves, which really doesn't make sense either because my calves aren't impressive anyway. So really,
Yeah. I'll give you an example. It's like I've got a guy that I'm coaching. He's competing in 2X, so you'll all work out how it is. 22 years old, been training for 2 years.
Mhm.
He's got more tissue than I've built in 15 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's genetically blessed. Not very tall, like average height. So like
Yeah,
just ticks a lot of boxes and has a good ethnic background for genetics too.
yeah, he's got a small little waist too.
Yeah, he's got good Asian genetics.
Yeah,
So that's
I'm,
that's someone I would call genetically blessed.
yeah, for sure.
I think the age at which you start it can frame your narrative as you get older as well. So, for example, I always use Zach as an example because he was strength training from 13 years old. And what he was able to do at 18, most people can't do when they've been training for 20 odd years now. So I think those that start, I've got a couple of younger guys in the gym that start a bit younger. And also if they're getting the right information at a young age, it can definitely be, advantageous. I don't know if you guys saw Ethan, who I put him on my Instagram the other day, and
Yeah,
everyone thinks he's old. He's actually not. He's only really young. He's, I think, 20 or 21. But someone, again, who had been training for a while, but perhaps wasn't doing all the right things, and you make a few adjustments, and it's like they just turn into a weed.
yeah. I think you posted a story today or yesterday.
Yeah, there's one of his rear and then his chest. So he typically
Chest. I was
last
like, what
year,
the hell?
so he went up against one of my athletes before I started working with him, Anthony, and so Ethan was really good, but he just got creamed from the front because he just had no size, no tissue there, and so we've just gone to work these last couple of years and he's made some ridiculous, everyone talks about his quads, but he's made phenomenal progression. He'll be on stage later this year. But again, it's that age of just, he's still young. Hormonally, he's just primed to be able to just explode. And so that's what I mean. If you're in that peak time where you start lifting weights from 15, if you're a male to say 23, 24, you can make some serious progression.
Yeah. Did you just look it up, MG?
Yeah, I did.
You did. I
did.
saw your face, like your eyebrows go up. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, man. I know him. I've had photos side by side with him, and that chest looks ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
I've always like complimented him on his back and quads, right? As Scotty said. So that would definitely been like his missing point, but it looks like he's fixed that. So
yeah, it's awesome. And then last one from the rapid fire.
40-minute rapid fire.
Yeah, like we got through them pretty quick. It's 11 questions. It's not too bad, eh? This is probably one for you, MG. Do you have any coach recommendations for a male who is not a competitor but is wanting to start a cycle for the first time? Want some direction to ensure that it's done safe as possible. Can't find a coach that specializes in this area.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations or what to do? Should he just reach out to you?
No, reach out to Matty O.
Matty Orchard?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Matty's just started up at peak. Definitely reach out to Matty. Matty's definitely someone I would trust and respect to look after somebody new and making sure that they're only doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So definitely hit up Matty.
Is this person a competitor?
No, they said not a competitor. Yeah.
If this person's listening to this, I would also maybe have a think, how long have you been strength training for, and weigh up where is your genetic ceiling? Because if you haven't even gone close to do that, and if you're not tracking your food, training hard, going within one repetition of close proximity to failure, then any kind of pharmacology that you're wanting to employ is just a waste of money, and it's deleterious to your health. Because all those other bits and pieces that we do as naturals to get the most out of what we can within our genetics without pharmacal aid, just because you start taking steroids doesn't mean that, I can work less harder and I'll still be able to get a result. You won't, because they're not going to feed you. They're not going to make you train hard. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely weigh that up. Like, what's your reasoning behind that? If you're not doing all those things, if you are and you just want to do it to look good, then that's obviously your decision. But I would definitely consider those things first.
I think Matty would be a good person because he'd probably give that same advice.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. Like, he would want to see that you've been doing a certain amount for a certain period of time before he would even, suggest it or, tell you that it was a good idea. So that's why I suggested that, because if you've just started training, like Scott said, and you think that this is the way forward, it's not.
Yeah. Okay, on to probably, might be a more in-depth question. We'll see how we go with it. But this was asked by our mate Ryan. So he asked, would you pick a class that's more suited to your physique versus a class that you want to compete in? So you might be more suited to classic or a smaller class, but your heart is with bodybuilding. What should you do in that scenario there?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a diehard, right? He loves the sport. I mean, there's two sides to it, I reckon. It's like, think about what you did last season, MT, right? Yeah. So you're a good example. So you love classic. We know you love posing, you love the sport, you love bodybuilding, you love the artistry of classic.
Yep.
You did classic. Physique wasn't necessarily on your radar, but as you got closer and you and Scott decided that was something that you thought would suit, and Scott, you and I sort of thought that a little bit earlier, and you did it and you ended up loving it. Yeah. Right? So I would say, if it's possible, why not both? I think with Ryan as well, like, I think Ryan's only ever done bodybuilding, so I don't think it would hurt for him to potentially try classic division and just see how he felt about it. And if he didn't and he just wasn't satisfied with the division or his feedback from the division, don't do it again. But potentially, if stepping down a category suits you more size-wise and you're going to get a better result and the feedback's going to be more positive, as a coach, I would say it'd definitely be something worth doing. Yeah. Because you're still bodybuilding, you're still in the sport, you're still doing all the same things. Actually, if anything, you're posing more in classic. You're still doing all the same mandatory poses. You're actually just doing a little bit more. So you're certainly not missing out on anything by stepping down. And, mate, at the end of the day, it's like, do I want to be Chris Bumstead or do I want to be Hardy Chupin? I want to be Seabum, man.
we get this a lot. Someone inquires and they're like, I really like fitness. Like I want to do, this is for females. I want to do fitness and they barely have a bikini physique. It's like, okay, cool. If you want to be competitive and look the part and fit in where you're currently at, this is the division you need to be in to start with. You can build your way up. So like for me, or for anyone, someone can go from fitness, men's fitness, build their way up to men's physique, like Scotty did, and then build their way up to classic if they want to, and then build their way up to bodybuilding, right? But maybe their heart's in bodybuilding. But sometimes if you want to be competitive, you've got to work your way up. Or if you start where you think where your heart is at, and then you don't do so well, then you need to reassess and be like, okay, what do I want to do with this sport? Do I just want to do something that I enjoy and that's it, just go on the stage and try to improve myself? Or if I want to be competitive, maybe I need to put myself in a division where I can be more competitive. And that's the realization I had. As you said, I love classic. I wanted to do classic, gave classic a try. Didn't suit my physique. What does? Men's physique, perfect. Sticking to that, doing that, and I actually enjoy it too, right? So I'm not in a division that I don't enjoy. I actually enjoy it, and I can be more competitive in it. Double win. Yeah. What do you think, Scotty?
Yeah, I think as well you have to look at the guys that, say for example, if we're talking in context of bodybuilding and classic, it's pretty rare that you see any of the guys that are the top pros, even any of the pros that are in bodybuilding, they're not our height. They're shorter. They've got shorter limbs, so that look suits them. We're still bodybuilding, although the division that we compete in is not bodybuilding because it's based on our muscular architecture and it's not favored toward that division. Even classic, it's pretty rare that you see tall sort of guys. Like most of them, again, are sort of small, those big, thick, dense muscle bellies, shorter limbs to create that illusion and that aesthetic look, unless you're just a freak. If you're 6 foot tall, I think that's why we have so much admiration for, say, Seaburn, because people don't realize how much muscle that dude has. At he's our height and he steps on stage, peeled to the bone or whatever it is, like 105, whatever kilos. That's just freakish. Yeah. So I think you kind of have to, again, if you want to be competitive, in which case, if you're not fazed by that, then why do a bodybuilding comp? Why not just get shredded and do a photo shoot and look grouse? But if you want to be competitive, if you're doing a show, surely there's an element of competition. Then why not just display your physique in a category that is more, I guess, favored toward where you're going to shine?
Yeah, totally.
And then have the view that you can progress. Like for females, they'll start in bikini and then clock bikini and then go to sports, clock sports, go to fitness. And that's how most of them have done it, unless they're just a genetic freak where they're fortunate enough that based on their physique, they were just born to be in that specific division. Yeah. Guys, it's the same thing, clock fitness, go to physique, clock physique, and then hope that you've got the look. Classic's a very niche look. Mm-hmm. I think you really got to have the specific, there's a lot of genetics that goes into that. And then bodybuilding, you just got to be willing to be, if you're taller than most, if MG is like, I want to do bodybuilding, I'll be like, you've got a lot of muscle that you need to be able to gain to be able to be competitive. Like you don't see the tallest bodybuilders that I know that compete would be people like Aaron Curtis, Brandon would be one of the taller ones. And obviously they're right on the fringe and those guys are like 5'10".
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's like really, really, really tall.
Yeah.
And so they know because they're taller, they perhaps aren't going to have, say, the size and the density as like Benny Hightongue or like Liam Cherry, who's a phenomenal athlete out of Queensland, those sort of guys. So they have to play their conditioning card. They may not be physically quite as big, but they push the conditioning. They're still big enough to be within that category. So I think you just have to sort of play the hand that you've been dealt or be willing to hopefully start really, really young and get really fucking huge so that you can be competitive.
Yeah. And, your coach should be able to help you with that, with what division to pick. And as we kind of said so many times, is you can reach out to the federation, send them your photos, and they'll definitely tell you too. Or reach out to the judges, and they'll definitely tell you too. Yeah, it's even picking subcategories. So how okay, you're going to do bikini, but then there's a first timer, there's a 30 plus, there's an under 23, there's a mum division. Even that too. Then there's an open. You might not be competitive enough to go straight into open. Maybe your first show is just first timer and 30 plus. And then the next time you compete, you move up and you try for open. So there's even grades and levels in it within a category itself. Yeah. Okay, so last week I was driving home from MG's gym, and I got a phone call from my cousin who has nothing to do with fitness, nothing to do with bodybuilding, and she's like, "Oh, I think maybe she was getting her blood taken, or she was at a medical appointment, and she's like, the lady that was helping her looked quite fit, and she started to talk to her, and she's like, oh yeah, my cousin, his name's Michael Trimboli, he's into that. She's like, oh my God, I listen to his podcast all the time. He's absolutely awesome. I love him. I asked him a question and he hasn't answered it yet. So I was like, oh my God, I felt so bad. So, Claire, your name's Claire. We got your question. She's a figure competitor. I believe she's in her 60s, right? MG, I think she's competed at A and B before, which I think you remember her or know of her.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's got a great physique.
Yeah, she's got an amazing physique. She does not look her age whatsoever.
No, she comes in peeled as, man.
Yeah. So she asked about post-comp, building and adding food, and your weight progression, so your body weight progression, right? So wondering how someone at her age should tackle that post-comp progression, adding food in, body weight progression and things like that. Now, I believe she's figure, right? So
she's figure.
She's figure, yeah. So she would have been pretty damn lean, right? Coming out of comp. And then obviously, in off-season, we want to build a fair bit of muscle, especially in a division like that. So maybe Scotty, do you want to talk a little bit about how someone that's super lean, what's the kind of body weight progression we want to see and building up of their metabolism and their food over time?
So firstly, let's assume she was like peeled to the bone if she's doing figure. I would want to know what was your starting weight and starting composition before you started. So where was your set point, and where's the point in which that you feel that you're your best from a hormonal perspective, from a perceived energy availability perspective. But essentially, there's no good being shredded anymore. So you want to get some instant fat mass on you. I'm assuming if you're 60, obviously you are at the back end, or you've already gone through menopause, or perhaps you're concluding that phase. So, your menstrual cycle is not so much of an issue, but it's more about getting some instant fat mass back on your physique. So we typically have a 2-week window. Let's just say that her stage weight, I'm going to say 60 kilos, right? Just to put an arbitrary number. Then I would say, okay, within the first 2 weeks, we want to put on around about you got a photo?
I do, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do, but continue, but yes.
Where was it going? You want to put on around about, okay, cool.
She looks great. She looks great.
Yeah, she looks great for that.
You might want to put on around about, let's say, 4 kilograms. So typically we want to get a good amount of fat mass back on straight away. And then from there, our rate of gain is going to be a bit slower. And it would depend on where that set point is, where she typically feels good in herself from a perceived energy availability and also hormonally, and obviously where her food focus is tailored towards. So if hunger levels are attenuated, once she gets some fat mass on her, where was she at from a metabolic health perspective at the back end of her prep? Sometimes you've got to weigh up, is it worth, if someone's been like ripped down, really, really low calories, is it really worth just bringing them up to 1600 versus just, you might get a bit of recoil by giving them a bit more, but sometimes it's better to do that because otherwise you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You might be just trying to control composition levels initially, but if you're not going to compete for a while, if she gains a little bit of extra fat mass too quickly, it's not going to really be the end of the world. So I would say...
So if someone, how long should it take for someone post-comp to get back to their comfortable weight? Like what period would you say? 3 months, 2 monts, 5 months?
It depends on how long they've dieted for. So how much weight did they lose and what was the duration of their prep? So typically, if you dieted for, I always go by, if you dieted for 24 weeks, you're typically not going to really start to feel, and you got really shredded, around about 50% of the time it took you to get there. Not saying you're going to be fully recovered, but you're going to be feeling pretty good by then. And then from there, it'll sort of take its time. So assuming most people do a 24-week prep, you're going to say around about 10 to 16 weeks. Everyone's going to be different. You think you feel good at 6, and you do, but then you get to 10 weeks and you're like, wow, I really feel good. And then 3 months later, wow, I feel even better.
Okay, so she's back at her comfortable composition and comfortable weight 3 months post-show, 12 weeks, let's just call it, half of the 24-week prep. What does she do from there onwards?
So hopefully you've worked out with your coach, like you perform, as we've spoken about, a SWOT analysis, so your strengths, weaknesses, asymmetries, and then a timeline. When are we going to compete again? You would have some longitudinal planning in there in terms of, okay, we've just finished 2022 season B. We want to get on stage in season B 2024. That gives us 2 years. We're allowing X amount of time for our prep. This is our recovery phase. That gives us 16 months to be able to make progress. And we only want to mini cut ideally once within that time frame. So we might put in place a plan that allows us, we might say, okay, I reckon the ceiling for composition wise, if we said that you were 60 kilos on stage, let's say that the heaviest we want you to push up to at your very, very top end, let's say it was 76 kilos. That's 16 kilos above stage weight. We don't want to get any heavier than that. Otherwise, we're getting unnecessarily heavy. And we're now back at our comfy weight and we're at 70 kilos, random number. Okay, so we've got 6 kilos. Our rate of gain, we want to try and gain for, let's say, at least 10 months if we can stretch that out. So rather than saying a weekly amount, we're going to put in place 4 or 6 week rate of gain bandwidths. Bearing in mind, there's going to be a set point, which everyone has, where based on however much calories you're consuming, you're going to get to a point where you'll just hit that plateau. Yeah. And we actually spoke about this MT the other week, where it's like my body just likes to hang out there. You can throw more food at it, but it just becomes very adaptive and it doesn't like to, to get pushed past that point. And then when you do give it that nudge, then you start to see a nice little flux until you get to that next point. So you'd put in place that system. And again, bearing in mind that the goal is to mini cut as infrequently as possible. So if you've been able to attenuate any kind of hunger related issues that have come with your contest prep and you're feeling awesome, food focus is very low, hunger levels are on track, so hunger is low, satiety is high, then you're in a position where hopefully metabolic health is good. And you would essentially, you'd run that phase until you get to that point where you run out of runway. And if it's happening too early and you get to the point where after 4 months and you're planning on gaining for 8 months, that they're getting close to that point, there's nothing wrong with, you don't have to mini cut, but you can just pull food back and just say, we're going to have a bit of a gain-taining phase. Let's just slow things down. And then you might have 4 or 6 weeks where rate of gain is very, very little. Doesn't mean you're not gaining new tissue. Again, if you've got enough fat mass on you, just like when we have a newbie, they might have a lot of fat mass that can essentially still support their muscle building endeavors. If they're overloading in the gym and they're ending each day in a positive protein state, then essentially they're building proteins, they're acquiring new tissue. It's because the scale weight isn't going up if you have enough and you have sufficient fat mass. And then you get to that point, and typically in an improvement season, I think you have to give that foresight to when do I want to start prep? What weight do I want to start prep? And if you get to say you've got 5 months left of your improvement season and you haven't mini cutted yet, it's like, well, do I really want to mini cut, or am I better off just let's push it, let's go a little bit further than where we'd originally planned our ceiling to be, and then we'll run a 10-week or a 12-week pre-prep phase. We'll clean up a good portion of fat mass, and then we'll reverse food back out and obviously start prep leaner than we planned, but we'll start prep a little bit later than we planned. So I think planning comes into it. And again, you and your coach have to sit down and work out what are your intentions. And then your coach obviously needs to map out how are we going to bring that to fruition. And you've also got to be able to troubleshoot and auto-regulate, because nothing ever really goes to plan. And sometimes you don't even have to mini cut. Ethan's a perfect example. We've gone over 2 years and we haven't run one cleanup phase, but we had a bout of gastro and we had COVID to help kind of do that for us.
So my question is, can you do that with 3 weekly check-ins every 3 weeks?
No. That phase when you finish, I think it's good to have a console when you wrap that up. And even every few months, I like to jump on a call or a Zoom and just speak about how we're tracking, what our plans are. We're still on the same page, because sometimes things change as well. You might be like, they're doing season B 2024, and then you've got no idea, but they're actually planning to go to Europe beforehand, and it's just come out because they had coffee with their girlfriends last night, and it's like, yep, let's do Europe. And so that changes things as well.
Actually, obviously we're moving into the start of season A, so we've got all our peeps that are prepping. They're in the swing of things, and they're all getting ready, and they're all getting things booked in and all that kind of stuff. But just before we wrap this potty up, how are things looking for everyone for season B? When are you guys kind of getting people ready to start prep for season B?
Yeah,
MG?
season B is looking awesome, man. I think we've all got a massive season B.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's exciting. It's what we're doing for. Scott said last week on the potty, he's like last year, and we said about it at the start, he was ready for a break. Got to the end of the season. We just got back from Nationals. It's been a massive season. We're ready for a break. And now we're itching at the bit again. Yeah. And I think A is just going to give us that nice entry to the year. We've all got some great athletes competing. We're excited. And then B is going to be massive. But, man, I've got people pretty much starting everywhere from March 14th all the way through to like the middle of April, man, just depending on where they're at. Some are leaner, some are not. So pretty close, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, same. Like some of my peeps are going to be starting, around about April, maybe some a little bit later in May. Some of the bikini girls that are already in good composition.
Yeah.
What about you, Scotty? Season B peeps, when are they kind of getting ready?
My guys will start in 2 weeks, and then
same as me. Yeah.
I actually haven't got a big lineup for season B. It's just fortunate. It's kind of the way it panned out. I've got a lot of people in 2024 and 2025, but everyone's starting in March. So I think it's the second week of March and the third week of March for the others.
And when are you starting, Scotty?
It's a good question. I can tell you, I've got it written down.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I suppose the reason he's asking is how many more Suvos have we got?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
I know you. I know exactly where your head's at.
That's where his head's at.
You're going to have to bring your own Suvo with you, Scotty.
Yeah, just bring meal prep.
Sorry?
Bring your own Suvo with you while you're in prep.
I could if I made it fit, but I just like to. I have the same dinner in the off season. I'm going to have the same dinner when I'm in prep. It'll just be a little bit less of it. So my prep is going to start in the first week of April.
Sweet. Awesome.
But again, I still don't know when that first show is going to be because I still haven't heard about that pro show that's potentially going ahead in Perth. So I might be 26 weeks out or I might be 29 weeks out. I'm not too sure. It just depends. Because otherwise the first show will be the IFBB show, I think.
Yep.
Because that's before Nationals, isn't it? The pro shows.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. I have to check my show list.
You do. Hey, I've got it. I've actually sent it around to everyone.
Yeah, it's the best. Thank God for him, too.
Yeah, it's a good list. And WMBF released their dates too, finally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Oh, for the end of year show. When is it?
The last weekend in October, 28, 29, I think.
I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
So that's a no for me. Are you guys going to put anyone in that show?
Not yet.
No, I'm not, just because I've got A and B DFAC Nationals, which is
that weekend.
Yeah, which is that. So that's it's like
I'm coming with that.
Is that the October weekend? Is it?
No, that's November.
It's the week after the ICM Pro the Worlds, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first weekend in November.
I can't wait for
that. So the first or the second weekend in November?
First.
So it's on the 4th, the same as the ICM Pro show.
So hang on 1 second.
No, ICM Pro show is before that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, the one in Italy is not. It's in November.
Oh, Italy, yeah. Yeah.
So is it after that one? Or it's the same weekend?
I have to look at the list. But I'm excited about that DFAC show because I'm going to be coming with you, MG.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That DFAC show, MG, is that?
Yeah, that's November, the first weekend in November.
Okay, so it's the same as the
Is it? Yeah. I think it's the 11th, maybe?
That's the second one then. Okay.
Oh, then it's that one.
That'll be the same weekend as the Bali ICN.
Yeah, there you go. It's that one
as well.
And just because we're the podcast of dropping bombshells, there is going to be a new female A and B division for season B.
What?
Yep.
For season B this year, a new division for females.
Yeah, it will be. Yep.
Can you release any more information?
I will say that it's a category that's going to sit between bikini and fitness.
Okay.
It's going to be a sport division, but it's going to be very, very specific in its criteria.
That's awesome, man.
And all will be released very, very soon. I'm very excited for it. We've been working on it, and we've collaborated with not just ourselves and judges, but also coaches in the industry to like get some feedback on what people want to see as a division. So this is like a coaches division, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. What kind of federation actually speaks to coaches so they can work out a division?
Man, it's like
not many.
I don't know. It's being a promoter and a coach. It has its benefits because if I'm doing something in A and B, sometimes I'll go AMT. What are your thoughts on this? Because obviously it's because he's a best mate as well, but he's one of the top coaches. Why wouldn't I want his opinion? I want his opinion. If he says if he listens to it and says, "Man, that's shit," probably another coach is going to think that like.
Yeah. So like, you know what? I've got like a bunch of people that will fit in that category done.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. So what we're doing is we're doing a souvlaki category. So you're going to dress up like a Suv, and whoever can put the most garlic sauce on in 30 seconds wins the title.
We should work out if they will sponsor your show.
Yeah, we so should do that. Yeah.
All right, boys. That was a good one. We got through like 14 questions.
Quality.
It was good.
Scotty, will you be joining us for souvlakis on Friday?
Friday.
We need you.
I think so. I just got to confirm it with kids and
we need you, man. We need you.
We need you.
So I haven't seen you, bro, because I was there the other week.
Yeah, and then you went there last
Friday as well.
We need you.
Yeah, well, I'm running out of weeks.
Let's go then.
Because we're not going to see you at the ICN rookies, right? You're not going to be there.
No, I'm going to be I'm heading to Queensland on Wednesday.
Oh, you best be coming Friday night. Then,
yeah,
man.
we'll have to work out the potty too because I'm going to be on a plane.
Okay.
Do it on the plane, man.
What's that?
Do it on the plane.
I don't know if I'll get Wi-Fi. Actually, it's Qantas flight. I should be able to get
as if you're going to do it on the plane.
Can you imagine if I'm on there?
No, that'll be organise another time. Don't worry.
Oh, fucking funny.
Hey, so you guys know I interviewed Stewie from NBA, which is an awesome potty, and I'm interviewing Tony Lanciano, ICN Australian president, and so that'll get released soon too. So I'm excited about that, and then we're going to try to get through to the other feds also.
Yeah, awesome, man. Good job.
All right, boys.
All right, guys. Great potty. Good to see you both. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
See you soon. Bye.